Hey everybody, welcome to I guess it's been a while since we've had a show, but welcome to Bedard's Unofficial Podcast. I am here with Dr. James Arnold. Welcome, James.
Glad to be here. Always nothing better to do than talk to Pierre. He's so much fun.
Well, this is in today's show we find out why so many English people are named James.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know.
Well, they're all named biblically, of course. Matthew,
Well,
Mark, Luke, John. But there's no James. There's letters or something, right? Letters
well,
and
there's a
some of
King
those.
James Bible,
Well,
right?
and
And
there was
you
letters. There's a letter in the Bible from or to James.
didn't you shit can some of your kings too? Didn't they get beheaded or didn't like Scots or I don't know. You guys are such a fucking mess. But you're not, I mean, I'm
Well,
sorry. I'm picking on the English today.
but I'm mostly German. We're even worse.
I know. But you know what? The Germans infiltrated through Prince Albert, baby. Didn't
They
he
did.
really, Victoria was smitten.
The
Definitely
House
smitten.
of Saxe, Coburg, and Gotha renamed Windsor in the First World War, of
They
course.
tried with Henry VIII with Anne of Cleves, I guess, was a
That's correct.
famous German. But the Germans did take Russia, Catherine.
But understand, like we do need to think about it, that English things, okay, the British Empire, what was it, a quarter or a fifth of the planet they controlled? And why did we end up with St. John's? Again, another biblical name. We end up with this because the British are everywhere. The damn English
Uh,
infiltrate everything.
until we
Anglicans,
immigrated.
Anglicans, Anglicans.
Well, you're talking to the wrong Bloc Québécois boy here. I voted Bloc
Oh, come
last
on now.
election.
Come on now. It says 1763 or whatever it was. The Quebecois realized that the British were giving them a better deal than the French crown. So they went with the British and said, yeah, we'll make Quebec. It'll
Yeah,
be
like
great.
we had a bloody choice. Like we had a choice. I mean, come on. Come on. We had no
Well,
choice.
you could have ended up in Louisiana, I guess.
Well, or in the mills in Nashua, New Hampshire.
True.
I mean, we had a choice. We went to work in the mills. I mean, now we don't even go down to goddamn what's a Old Orchard is like deserted because nobody wants to end up in Alligator Alcatraz for some reason.
For some reason.
Some
Yep, the
reason.
world is always dealing with something terrible. But we've got something good to talk about, do we, Pierre?
What were we going to talk? Okay, well, first off, we were going to talk about the Sheppard case and really sort of a post Sheppard case discussion about, it's been a little while, I believe, since the verdict came in. Hell, he's probably even done with most of his time at this point. I'm
Well, I thought
guessing.
it was well into the fall. I thought it was well into the end of 25.
Oh,
But that
okay.
was the restoration of his original sentence, notwithstanding all of the character references. People reached out to the court and said he was a man of good character. Release him early, though. Some of us might have thought that the very fact of being convicted of sexual assault means that you're not of good character. There's nevertheless people who think he's of good character, and some of these folks are, you know, close to St. John's and have support of the whole way the schools have ran, and they want to defend the schools at any cost, to the point, I think, of overlooking that there were, I think we can call sexual assault an atrocity. So they want to overlook the fact that atrocities occurred.
Well, in fairness to the Crown prosecutor, I have to give very, high praise to the Crown prosecutor who went in and argued the case in front of the Supreme Court. They didn't have to appeal the sentence, or they didn't. They
No,
did
they did
not.
not.
They did not have to move forward with that, but they did, and for
And we'll never
principle.
know exactly the reasons why, Pierre, but one will wonder whether they were kind of outraged at the level of grassroots community support that seemed to have come out in favor of,
I can tell you,
I don't know.
nah, I don't think so at all. I can tell you, I'm gonna, people will hate me even more than voting block, but having gone to law school, I can tell you that there was the Sheppard case would not have gone to the Canadian Supreme Court just based on its own merits alone. There was really a point to be taken, and we discussed it a lot in the previous webinars about Friesen and the fact
Right.
that the application of Friesen really mattered, really for the future. Cases go to the Supreme Courts really to influence future cases, and it was a very strong message, I think,
And
by the
what's
court.
Friesen again? Because not everybody will remember what Friesen was. Maybe you
Friesen
just tell
means
them.
that if you and you're probably a better expert than me. I don't have my slides ready, but as I recall, Friesen was really looking at crimes that occurred in the past and judging them with the same severity as if they occurred today and not in the past. In other words, the past judgments, well, let's take one of my favorites, very sad, is Mr. Mealy, the guy from St. John's, my alma mater in Selkirk. He only did 2.5 years,
Right.
and which is criminal. I mean, and I'm no, my opinion only, but it's 2.5 years for the shit that guy pulled off.
Right.
I
And
don't
so
see
that's
it.
a sentence. That's a sentence back when, a
Uh,
couple of decades ago or whatever it
2000,
is.
around
Yeah.
early 2000, early aughts, as they say.
Right. And
Or is it?
so when you look at a sentence back 20 years ago, the same crime, if convicted today, would result in probably
Oh,
3 times the sentence, two
at
or three
least.
times the
Well, in
sentence.
Canada, in
Yeah.
the US, they would just lock you up.
Right.
One thing about the US, they don't dick around with these
Boy,
types of things.
there's some terrible puns going on here.
I didn't mean to
We
say,
don't dick
well, all
around.
right, they don't
We
mess
don't dick
around.
around with sexual assault.
We tariff those guys, we tariff those molesters. No,
Yeah.
but
In Canada, there's this understanding that they want to have sentences match the circumstances of crime as well as the crime. You're correct.
yeah, it's too bad though. But anyway, Friesen just says, "Hey, be fair." I mean, that sounds stupid, but that really is the gist of it. Be fair in
Would it
allocating your
outrage
sentences.
would it outrage public sensitivity and the rule of law to sentence someone in Sheppard situations to 2.5 years? And would it outrage the public and rule of law to reduce his sentence after he was convicted by a
It
jury?
should.
And the court said, yes, you don't reduce sentences and you sentence in terms of today's understanding of things.
Plus, I mean, when you think about it, he got 6 years.
Which is light given the circumstances of this.
You think?
Well, I'm aware. So I've done a little bit of research in the Canadian context, and these kinds of offenses tend to start at 6 years. So he got off at the lower end of expectations, in my view.
Well, a lot of it, yeah, exactly. Well, he had the references.
So it was already low. It was already at the low end of the expectation for sentence, and then reduced more in the Alberta context because someone was successful in convincing a bunch of judges that they should do this, including very prominent people in the Alberta context.
Well, it wasn't that. I mean, it was a lot like Trump's election. It was not overwhelming. Even though Mr. Trump says it was overwhelming, the reality of the appellate ruling was it was a 2-to-1 split ruling, which is pretty hardcore. I mean, it doesn't get closer than that, right?
Right. Which is why the Supreme Court then looked at it, because it was not persuasive, plus all the other principles. But the really outstanding thing in that Supreme Court, there are two things that in watching the hearing, two things that were very outstanding. One is how with it and on top and sort of like it's not a conversation and it's subject to procedure and time limits and everything else, but how direct and non-flowery language the Supreme Court justices addressed this. They just spoke direct to the issue. Bright people who just sort of said, "This is what I see," and they didn't mince words.
So
And
to our listeners,
they didn't decorate it either.
to our listeners, we were hoping to get a transcript of and actually analyze the transcript. It was that good. But as it turns out, the Canadian Supreme Court only allows it, you can watch a webcast, but there is no transcript or closed caption of it. You can we could have requested the records, right? You can get to them, but they don't really make it easy for you to get the transcript down. But yeah, to your point, James, it was an excellent presentation. There was some real, I would say, you want to call them highlights or lowlights, or bingo card.
I don't know.
Things that show up
we'll
on the
just say
bingo
things
card.
that captured our attention.
Well, what was the highlight for you?
There were a couple. One of them was an allusion to the accused, Mr. Sheppard, may not have been forthright with his lawyer, so may have told his lawyer things that weren't factual. And then that Mr. Sheppard may have told, I guess, was it a conclusion or an inquiry on behalf of the Chief Supreme Court Justice, that he had actually lied in a court.
Yes, you mean that would be a crime, though, wouldn't it? I mean, wouldn't that be perjury?
I would think it would
saying.
be. You're not supposed to, I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God, sworn on a Bible or affirmed or whatever that is. You promise that you're going to be honest.
I'm going to have to go back to my crim law book. I mean, I know all I studied was US law, but yeah, I think when you're not honest, and what was it? He didn't reveal the fact that he had spanked the bare bottoms of boys as a police officer or something in his past, or there was some
and so
incident.
let's state that really clearly. So he was a police officer in Ontario. That was his career at one point. And he decided at one point that rather than arresting or taking kids home to their parents, that he would pull their pants down to bare bottoms and swat them on their bare bottoms. Now, do we know if it was with an implement? Did he carry around a SWAT stick in his police car, or did he use his bare hand? We don't know. Did he take his belt off and belt bare bottoms of boys?
We don't know the full details, but we do know that the Chief Justice of the Canadian Supreme Court implied to Mr. Sheppard's lawyer very strongly that Mr. Sheppard had perjured himself in his first trial. In his first trial, which, right. So let's go back. So the sentencing guidelines, do you believe they would have been any different if this case of him beating boys, young adolescent boys, as the guise of a police officer? Dr. Arnold, do you think that might have had some impact on his original sentence? I'm just asking.
Well, I don't think you need any form of expert, psychologist, lawyer. I think you could ask the average reasonable person, what do you think? A guy is convicted of sexual assault and previously whipped the pants down of some kids and spanked them on their bare bums. Do you think that the first spanking of boys on bare bums, while a police officer, should be taken into account when sentencing the person for sexual assault later? What do you think the average person, this is what they call a question that's already been answered by even asking the question, rhetorical.
Well, what would the,
I have some questions that arise automatically, because when I go into the DSM-5 TR, which means Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition text revision, which is the current version that we use to diagnose mental disorders. And when I go into that diagnostic manual, we have abnormal sexual things in there. And one of them would refer to we'll call it paraphilia, which is a general category of unusual sexual desire. So spanking someone is an act of violence, whether it's justified or legal in whatever jurisdiction you're in. But bare bottoms, is there a hint of a sexual overtone to pulling down pants?
Let's ask two survivors. Let's ask two survivors of the St. John's schools what they think about this. I'll go first. So in my 2 years, getting beaten for whatever the hell I did, though I did never get busted for smoking. I just want to make that clear. I completed the grand and I didn't get busted for smoking. No one, I have never seen a case where a master asked a kid to pull down their goddamn pants. Ever. I mean, that would have been a warning sign. Just saying. I mean, to me, as a person,
Pulling down a kid's pants by its very nature is a sexual act under current Canadian law. You don't have to actually show intent. You don't have to show intent at that point, as far as I understand. You have to merely prove that it actually occurred.
So I'm going to go into my Trailer Park Boys mode for a minute and just say, this motherfucker lied. I mean, he fucking lied. And, there's any way you want to, however you want it to happen, Mr. Leahy, the shit winds are out there. And the shit winds say, this motherfucker outright lied in a goddamn court of law. And you know what?
We referred to the King James Bible earlier. May I quote, "Thou shalt not bear false witness."
What was even worse? I got to tell you, I had an experience where we just happened, we were talking to somebody who lives in the UK and who had relations who went to Ampleforth.
Now we need to explain why Ampleforth is of interest. This is another boys' school, a prestigious boys' school, different than St. John's, because I don't know that we could say St. John's was prestigious in the same way.
Oh, for God's sake, St. John, you know what?
St. John's is St. John's hater. St. John's
it is prestige.
Notorious.
I am all that I am because of St. John's. Okay, just stop it.
Oh yes, I'm sure you are.
All right, back to our regular programming with Ampleforth. Go ahead.
So, what is Ampleforth?
Oh, Ampleforth is a prestigious as hell Catholic. It's called the Catholic Eton. It's near York, I believe, in Yorkshire, which is a very conservative part of the UK. I'm told. I've driven through, but it's prestigious shit. And actually, they used Ampleforth for crap like, sorry, my apologies, for Harry Potter and different movies of that nature because it's such the classic school.
Yeah, beautiful architecture.
So Mr. Sheppard went from, I guess he went to some colleges over in Newfoundland and collected degrees, and then got into Ampleforth for the summer as a summer school teacher. And
he did.
Oddly, a few years later, he was flying back through Heathrow and the cops were there.
And why were the cops there?
There were issues about his stint at Ampleforth.
There were allegations that he had engaged in sexual impropriety with students, male students at Ampleforth.
But he wasn't the only one.
No,
at the same time. And this is why as I started our story, that my friend was just so shocked, is at the same time there was there were a bunch of different scandals of Ampleforth was run, I believe, by the Benedictine monks, and there were issues with the monks, some of them. And I got to tell you, I'm a lifelong Roman Catholic. And I got to, to me, abuse is everywhere. It's irreligious. I mean, the Catholics were particularly bad. These guys were assholes. I've run into I've run into priests who were later deemed to be molesters who left me alone. But you know, I ran into these people,
And
and
I
it's
and
just
I have
terrible.
assessed Roman Catholic priests for court.
Yeah,
Well, after they were charged with sexual offenses, and the court is trying to determine what in their history is of interest, and their personal characteristics, because they're trying to develop a risk profile. If we sentence this person to time in a jail, well, we're not going to see sexual assaults against young people in that context. But if we release them and they're on a probation, parole, or what they call statutory release in Canada, which means you're supervised by a parole officer while you're out on the street, might they have access to vulnerable people and do it again?
yes,
So
and again,
I have assessed a series of them, and I'm sad to say that there is a series. It's not just, oh, there was one malfunctioning sexually assaulted priest. There have been quite a few.
so Mr. Sheppard was in Ontario, went to Newfoundland, got his degrees, and ended up at Ampleforth for the summer. Caused a little bit of a stir, and then, but what he came out of Ampleforth with was a letter of recommendation.
He did.
And he showed up at St. John's doorstep with a letter from, you know, literally a Roman Catholic Eton
So
saying, vouching
here
for
he
him.
is saying, first of all, I hold the conservative religious values, the conservative Christian values that St. John's holds dear. I'd like to move us back to a more traditional way of raising young men. And I have actually worked in a school that has these very traditions. Would I not be a valuable asset to work at St. John's?
And of course he was. He was degreed. I mean, we didn't have anybody, at least when I went. Well, there were some, but
Right.
you know, by and large, I mean, someone with a degree was actually had degrees had value then.
They did. So here you have a fellow with these credentials, and he is an articulate person and was charming.
Like probably a lot
Apparently,
like me.
he charmed.
Probably like me.
He yeah, yes. Oh, well, I think you're probably more charming. But uh, the the thing that's really interesting is when you look at how sexual offending occurs. What we have is those offenders who are what we call pro-social, meaning that they have good social skills, and they use those very social skills to reel the people in that they want to assault.
I was getting email from people who basically were vouching for Mr. Sheppard. You don't know
Yes,
what the hell you're talking about. You're, you know, I knew
because
Paul, he was blah,
when
blah, blah. I
that's
had
right.
at
When
least
I was
half dozen.
Yes, yes, because when I knew him as a teacher and when I talked to him personally, he helped me academically. He was charming. He was supportive. He was kind. Yes, he just didn't take the next step of sexually assaulting me.
Well, you were, you know, like, I mean, whatever. You didn't, it's either you're on or off. I believe it's very binary, right? I mean, you're on or off.
Right.
In terms of
It's
as a
he
victim.
found That's right. He found the person either accessible or attractive to him.
So
So
he comes from Ampleforth, and that's when you met
those
him.
who vouched. Sorry, I was just going to say those
Sure.
who vouched for the guy um, simply only know part of who he is.
So then he goes and he teaches at St. John's for a little bit. And then he goes away and he gets on the international circuit. And I say that because there is this, you know, Americans, Canadians probably have no clue about this. I do because I've lived overseas, as you have, James. But there is an international school circuit. In
There
every
is.
major city, there's an American school, a lycée, you know, but a good school, right? That the elites send their kids to, usually to learn English, um, you know,
Have
to
an
be
enriched curriculum with the best teachers.
exactly. And Mr. Sheppard hopped and skipped all over the place. I mean, I know the names. I think, you know, Kuwait, things like that. But then he comes back to the UK, and waiting for him at Heathrow are the cops. with a warrant for his arrest over, or, the allegations at Ampleforth of, I forget how many students, 4 or 5, a handful, including a guy who offed himself and told
Right.
his,
Meaning committed suicide.
oh, sorry, I'm being coarse again. Yeah, he sadly killed himself, committed suicide, but told his sister, I believe, beforehand. And he got off. Sheppard
Which is
got
an
off.
interesting, turn of phrase, but yes, he
Oh,
did
yeah,
not get
sorry.
convicted. He did not
get convicted. Yes,
If we don't
you.
talk about difficult things and laugh, we're lost. We have
Sorry.
to talk about difficult things and have humor. But yeah, and the reasons for not being convicted. Okay, not being convicted means not guilty. It doesn't mean they didn't do it. It means that it wasn't proved in the way that it would need to be proved for a court.
Yep. And lo and behold, this picture shows up in the Daily Mail,
which is a big newspaper in the UK, in the United Kingdom.
and one thing leads to another, and before he knows it, he's on trial in Alberta for his sins of the past. And we go from there. I mean, but I think that the
jury of his peers convict him, and the whole appeal and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
The outline, the outstanding question, Pierre. Yeah, juries do matter. They heard the evidence. They were right there. They determined that he was guilty. So he's guilty. Now, the questions that continue to sort of bug me are, so the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada said, okay, this looks like you lied, you perjured yourself. We're not aware that he's been charged with that criminal offense, are we?
No, but we're not. I mean, I got to tell you, I'm not looking either. I think it's something to mention like we are now, but I could give a rat's ass. I know that there's another website out there I'll give a shout out to that, someone who Sheppard was in a relationship with got rather pissed off. And I got to tell you, one of his, I guess his live-in, who was much younger than him, died of an OD, allegedly.
This is a live-in male partner, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, come on. I mean, not to get Joe Biden about this, but come on. It's like, it's too convenient.
The questions we'd have are, the circumstances make us wonder.
Yes, and rightful. It's not like,
and it's just question. It's just question.
It's just a question.
We can't say, but we wonder.
It's a little weird.
And then you have, a criminal conviction. You have the Ampleforth situation. You've got somebody who's got a website. So we've got a number of data points that, not from a criminal law or even a legal perspective at all, but they make the average person wonder.
Oh, not to mention, if you look, and this has been I shouldn't say a pet theory of mine, but whatever. I believe people like him, people like Mealy, are serial killers, in the sense that people, commit suicide based on their crimes. And I know that's a little, you can never prove something like that, obviously, but karmically, hell yeah. I mean, yeah. If not, but this son of a bitch, then, so.
Well, we could get into all sorts of things, couldn't we? We could talk about the nature of good and evil. We could talk about the role of religion in sexuality and sexual offenses. We've already touched on all of this. It's all in a blender, all of this stuff. We've got schools with strong discipline and tradition, wanting to return to old, standardized, what they consider traditional values.
Well, you can do that. You know what? You can set up a SWAT regime. And you lived under it, I lived under it, and it was like you did something, and a lot of the old boys will say it was better than getting vibed out or getting, sent to your room. You did something wrong, you bent over, you took your SWATs, and you moved on. That was a whole theory behind SWATs. Now, the problem with this is pretty soon you start attracting people who like to do that shit. You start
We're
getting
saying
masters,
teachers who like to
teachers
deliver
who like
such.
to SWAT. And I'm sorry. And the school lived long enough, right? It was the school was around for quite a few years, and it was able to attract that. So let's say to all you Christian school starters who want to impose maximum discipline, and in a Trump era, who gives a shit if you're swatting a kid, right? It's like for the good of everybody, the trains run on time, blah, blah, blah. You better watch out because you're going to attract a certain type of person who loves this shit more than they should. And that is,
And so let me bring it home to the Canadian context. So in the Canadian context, you may not swat, you may not spank with a object. You may not do this. And although the criminal code in Canada puts a teacher in the place of a parent, there are no jurisdictions within Canada that will accept that a teacher can hit a child. And we're talking, this is before the turn of the century. So it's not legal in this country to assault a child with an object. We actually have in Saskatoon, in Saskatchewan, where I live, we have a series of court cases right now, which are a religious school, not Anglican, but similar, where they swatted kids, and we have assault with a weapon charges, as well, of course, as sexual assault charges and other things, because that's what happens with schools of this nature, as you just eloquently said, that they attract people with these predilections, meaning that this is what they do and what they think is reasonable. And it leads to a whole bunch of spin-off effects that maybe the founders and the people who are running things don't anticipate, but they bloody well should.
well, yeah, but again, yeah, what can you say? I mean, I think what happened with, I graduated well before a lot of this went down, but I
Yeah.
think as the school got older, it drew that. And you also had the question of assault is interesting because there have been several cases of assault that came out of St. John's.
Yes.
I mean, no need to itemize them, but people went to the RCMP. I mean,
They did.
And what was the RCMP's reaction? I don't know personally.
Well, we know
I can
in
guess.
part. At times, the RCMP called the school and said, "We've had a report. What's happening?" And the school would say, "Well, a kid not behaving well. Perhaps the teacher did stray over a line. Thanks for telling us." And the RCMP went, "Okay, that appears to be, thanks for talking." The school
Well,
is a
they
respected
laid charges in
one case.
in Selkirk against many students for a beating. It got to the. I mean, we've all seen beatings and things of that, which actually, beyond there were two types of violence in the school, right? From the masters and from your fellow students.
Right.
I mean, and I'm speaking, for me, it was okay, but you learn how to live like you learn how to live in prison. It's day to day, and you're just looking to make your release date. The more I think about my experience, the more incarcerated I felt.
I actually have letters that I wrote to my family. My family was overseas, which is why I was in a boarding school.
Me too.
Right. So I signed some of them, convict number 890.
Well,
I signed them that way.
absolutely.
And that this is not me making this up now. I signed my letters. And my parents kept them. They kept a whole bunch of stuff. And in a way, it's nice that they kept them, but it's also not nice that they kept them because now I'm reading the darn things.
But you'd smuggle. People would smuggle shit. People would like food and cigarette and tobacco had, ridiculous value. I mean, you can't. I would do that. I keep saying this, and it just grosses people out. But I would pick up butts from the ground and
Yeah.
re-roll them as
Right.
cigarettes, right? Because why
Well,
not?
I gave cigarettes to people who wanted to beat me up, which wasn't always helpful because then they'd show up to beat you up just for the sake of getting a cigarette from you. But
Yeah, well, that's that kind of extortion where, yeah. But back to our good friend Sheppard and the Supreme, it was really amazing to see this go all the way to the Supreme Court. I got to tell you, I was sort of in awe to see
yeah,
this case.
absolutely. To have St. John's on the national stage at the highest court in the land to confirm that the conduct of the teacher was so terrible that they would not agree with the highest court in the province of Alberta, and
Yes,
that they would restore the sentence, and you shall surrender yourself forthwith and back to jail. Like it's like Monopoly, go directly to jail.
it's and yeah,
Surrender
you know what?
yourself
It
to the
wasn't so much
authorities in
the
the
time.
community. Yeah.
It wasn't so much the amount of time, because hell, we did the time,
Right.
in a very real way. And we, you know what? I always equate it, Shepherd's bullshit with all the appeals, all the, whining, all those kids he beat, they took their swats,
Right.
right? You bent over and you took your
And I'm
swats.
going to throw it in just because we should. Um, you have Mr. Sheppard, who is a school teacher who didn't receive income per se when he was at St. John's, earned money in some other ways, but we don't think he had bags of money. And he pursued this case through all sorts of appeals. Like, how much do we think the legal bill is? And who the heck funded it? I don't think it was just him. I think there's some money bags somewhere who still believe that he is innocent. There are some rich religious people out there who must be supporting this guy. Maybe
You
they're
know,
religious, maybe they're not. I don't know.
the only way you do that is to, try to torture his lawyer into giving up who's paying him. But
You'd
that's
never get that.
illegal.
You'd
That's
never get
illegal.
that.
Yeah, he's too good a lawyer. I mean, he actually had a very good lawyer who didn't have a
Yes,
hope in hell. He
completely
didn't have a hope in
non-flustered.
hell.
Yeah, and completely non-flustered about
He
the whole
knew,
proceeding.
he knew what was happening. He knew what was
It
going
looked like
on.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he could not be that stupid. And really, the restoration of sentence was really light. It was more to me, it was more the Fort Worth message that was
It is.
important.
It is. It's a message that this is taken seriously, and we don't reduce sentences
And he
for
got
behavior such as this.
he got questions. I was impressed by the court as a whole. I mean, I think the getting asked about perjury by the Chief Justice is trumps everything, so to speak. But the other judges had really good questions, and you sense that they got the history of it, or they knew why they were hearing the case, which was really
Absolutely.
to make sure that Friesen is applied in any, at the provincial level, so it doesn't have to
And
come up.
that people who do such things, regardless of whether somebody has thrown $100,000 at the case in defense of him, you're still, if the facts are the facts, this is what's going to happen.
Well, they took it only to bring it back. If they wanted to just leave it alone, they would have, I mean, if they wanted to rule in his favor, they wouldn't have taken the case.
That's correct. They don't have to take cases at the Supreme Court.
That's right. And which, again, it shows how great a job the Crown prosecutor did to have the and I'll call it balls in my book, to, pursue the case, even though
Right.
there wasn't really, there was not a lot of money on the line. It was really one of those things where it was all about the principle, which you
Yeah.
don't see as much as you
Now,
need to.
so that's a St. John's development. Can I do the segue into, you have a picture behind you? What's that of, Pierre?
No, well, I think, that we'll be talking about that soon. I think for our,
I'm excited. I'm excited because of what's coming forward.
yes, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that'll be for our next, probably our next show.
Okay, so there's something behind Pierre that nobody knows what it is, except that it stands for something, and it's going to be very, very interesting.
Yes, it's going to be very, very interesting. Stay tuned. Keep listening and
Stay
keep
tuned.
subscribing. And remember, Toughest School in North America by Richard D. Candole is the book you want to have on your shelf. So with that,
On the back
Dr.
of,
Arnold,
but beside your toilet for short and long reads.
that's right. Yes, to promote your health. It's as, in fact, it'll hell if any nothing else will cure your type 2 diabetes, this will. No, I can't make that claim. That's illegal.
No, you can't.
You can't
That's a
make
health
that
claim.
claim. Forget that one.
Disclaimer.
But you know,
Disclaimer.
it's as gratuitous as any colon cleansing commercial.
Very good.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Arnold. See you all soon. Bye.
Bye bye.